Okay, it goes without saying that I haven't really been following the competitive scene of the Pokemon TCG for quite some time now. It's been a bit of a break. But I did, however, take a look at the EUIC event, and I did notice how cool the game was. Like Todd Reklev doing well with Charizard Pidgeot. Kind of to be expected that Charizard would perform well in this event, but I guess maybe not. It wasn't as well. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people predicted that it would win, but either way, still a very, very diverse tournament. Lots and lots of new decks, and even got a Spathra there in top 32. A very, very cool event, I would say, overall. And if you would like to try out any of these decks, then you'll be able to find out the lists over on Limitless. But I didn't make this video really to review EUIC. What I wanted to talk about was this regional in the Philippines. Now, I'm not sure how the Philippines format their events, if they do like best of one or something, or if they do things a little bit differently over there. That is something I would have to find out. However, you can probably notice something a bit different about this event, and yeah, there's quite a bit of Charizard. In fact, it makes up every deck in top 8 except a third place God of War deck, which I will have a look at because it's not every day you see God of War post rotation doing really, really well. I think a lot of people did come to the conclusion that God of War would at least still be playable post rotation, but I didn't think it would be this good. But either way, we've got the new Drifloon, well, the Drifloon from Scarlet Violet, which is quite cool, as well as the new Fluttermane, which is nice. So yeah, God of War still kicking around and doing what God of War does best. Seems to have an okay matchup against Charizard, I guess, or maybe they got a bit lucky there, but still cool to see. And I'm a big fan of Arceus Giratina, even though I don't play the deck very often, so that's nice. And some Dialga Matang is certainly interesting. But yeah, a large chunk of this event was made up of Charizard Pidgeot or Lost Box Charizard. So yeah, that's a wee bit scary. Now, we do also have Perth, which took place afterwards. So, this was an event that was on the 13th of April, not the 6th. So, Perth is the most recent regional event, and it still makes up one, two, three, four, five spots of top 8. And the only other decks in top 8 are Lost Zone Box, Roaring Moon Dunsparce, and Lugia Archeops. So, my next question is this deck a problem in the Pokemon TCG? Now, this is just 2 events, right? Like, we can't really just say that this is going to be the game or the format for the next few months and the next upcoming regionals. We don't know if Charizard will continue to be this dominant, basically. We don't know. And typically, when this happens in a format, players start to counter, basically. They start to add in all their tech cards and whatnot. I'm not really in a position to talk about that because I'm not a strictly competitive player, and I don't like to think about competitive plays when I'm not like a competitive player myself, basically. I prefer casual stuff. I prefer rogue decks. It's my jam, basically. And there's a lot of other channels that will talk about competitive stuff. However, I wanted to raise this issue about Charizard because I actually recorded a video fairly recently where I talked about how Charizard might actually break the TCG. Is Charizard maybe a step too far in the game design? And I ended up cancelling that video. It's recorded, but I'd never uploaded it because I decided it was just too negative. It was just mostly Charizard hate, and there wasn't really a balanced point to make with it. But now, after seeing these regional results, I'm kind of like questioning those points in the video again because I'm just thinking, is Charizard too much for this game? Is it too much for the Pokemon TCG? And I wonder if it was slightly overtuned. I definitely don't think it was great card design by any stretch of the imagination. The deck is pretty easy to play, even at a very basic level. I'm sure it's a lot harder, of course, at, regional play. And, this is not me saying that these players are, cheating, basically, and using a very easy to play deck to do well. I'm not saying that. However, what I will say is I think this deck is obscenely powerful in comparison to most of the other decks. And I can't help but feel like this format would be a lot better without it. And, we've always had formats where you could make a statement about a certain deck that's maybe a bit too strong. For a time being, I probably would have said the same thing about like Pikarom. When there was no bench protection, it was seriously annoying to play against that deck. against ADP was like the most infamous example, just because it basically meant that you couldn't really play single prize decks for a time that weren't like the Cephalon. So yeah, and even then. So yeah, I don't think Charizard is nearly as oppressive as ADP, but I do worry that most events moving forward might end up just being Charizard Pidgeot. I hope not, personally, but it's a bit of a concern. And TCG Live, I can go on for days about how I don't like TCG Live anymore, but there seems to be continuous amounts of players who just flock to Charizard on TCG Live, and it's just a bit boring. I wouldn't have much of a problem with it if there was, good grass decks in standard, and pour one out for my boy Totera there. But if there was better grass decks, the better counter decks in general, I don't want to play Vulpix every game though, and it's just a bit boring, I guess. Expanded isn't quite what it used to be. I do like Sun and Moon cards, but I've not really got around to like testing out Expanded really with the Sun and Moon stuff. It's a lot of credits to craft that stuff, and not wild about doing that just yet, but I might move on to some expanded content in the near future, especially if this format just ends up being Charizard until it rotates, because that would be a bit boring. Now, there is like obviously a lot of new cards that are coming out. I don't think there's anything in Mask of Change that will kind of put Charizard in check. I mean, there's like several new Ogre-Bonds that look pretty cool, but I don't think any of them necessarily destroy Charizard or shut it down. But this is obviously not me saying that I want another deck that is equally broken. I definitely don't want that. I would much rather, we stay at the same power level, and then they maybe just print like a Drapion style card, but for Charizard EX. I don't know how they would do that, but I'm sure they could think of something over in the card design department. But yeah, it's just some food for thought, I guess, in this video. It's very much jumbled ideas and opinions being thrown at the camera, and basically me saying, yeah, I'm slightly worried. I'm slightly concerned, moving forward. And yeah, I want to know what you guys think, basically. Do you have any tips on how to beat Zard consistently, or, how to deal with the fact that it seems like 2 out of every 4 opponents on TCG Live are playing this deck? But yeah, it's been a power. Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.